Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered a tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it because I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
Wow.
sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. Had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a
Poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion.
real thing.
That's poker with the boys. That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's
Poker.
Let's go, Joey.
Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Tim.
Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Pogger.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
Now,
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump Violet.
Tour?
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
Oh,
Sorry,
she wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back, folks. Matt is finding a way to call into the phones. Sam has 3 different mouses and 4 it's very difficult to figure out. War on Santa says Emma gains more life experience. It positively affects her worldview. Note today she expanded her vision beyond student debt forgiveness to call for a broad debt jubilee, just as she completes preparations for her own wedding. Yeah, you know, definitely got finances on the mind. I would love. Oh my god, if my credit card debt was. That stuff's sticky. You're like, oh, I was good this month. Oh.
I finished paying my student loan last year after 12 and a half years.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, and I still think they should cancel everyone else's.
Yes. Well, you don't think everybody should suffer in the way that you did?
No, I don't be that way.
Okay, cool. Well, that means you're not a boomer. Did we call into the phones?
The
Oh, okay. Sam's mouse is dead, so we can't get into the phone system. We're figuring it out, folks. Keep reading some IMs. Andrew from DC, that Emma Jordy song is so dope. I just noticed that in the background you can slightly hear Emma saying, it's Thursday. There's layers to this thing. Also, not sure if Brandon and Binder are joining us. We will see. But it might just be us. Houthi and the Blowfish. Matt and Emma, I just want to say shame on you for poisoning Sam's fragile, impressionable mind against Ethan ahead of yesterday's debate. He was clearly coached ahead of time and all of Hassan Piker's terrorist-loving talking points. The amount that Sam didn't care about any of that, I just can't even express how little he paid attention to any of that. You're surprised? Oh, we have Binder? Sam's mic may not be on. We got them both.
We got them both. Here they come.
All right, here they are. Hey, what's up, guys?
I'm gonna do my best to over here while Matt tries to fix the phone thing to do this.
Thank you. All right, we're in. What's up, guys? We'll bring you in just a sec. Reading some IMs. Crotchy, Emma, watch me do a kickflip.
What you do here? Let me see.
Tim from Boston, what will Netanyahu et al. Do if Trump starts putting anti-Zionist Jewish Americans in camps? Whose side will Netanyahu be on? Serious question. Oh, you know what? Already know the answer. Yeah. You already know the answer. I mean, Colombia isn't even on the side of Jewish kids that were protesting the genocide. They banned Jewish Voice for Peace for anti-Semitism the month after October 7th.
How many of them are going to mention this Jewish woman in Brooklyn? Do we have that on the sheet, actually? Those spoken? We'll
get to that. Yeah.
How many people, is Jake Tapper going to do a story on that? No. Don't hold your breath. They don't care. It's not about Jews. It's about Israel.
Yep. What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Hey, it was good to see you in person last week, Brandon. What's happening on the discourse?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been good about streaming for the past week because it was my grandmother's birthday, and I've been, celebrating
happy
with her.
Birthday.
Turned the big
excuses, Brandon.
I know, right? Excuses, but it turned a big 8-0. But we will be getting back on the horse this week. If you didn't watch the last stream, though, I really recommend it because we had a great time watching some conspiracy theory stuff. But yeah, we should be back this weekend. So go over to the Discourse with Brandon Sutton on YouTube or Twitch and, be there first.
All right. Check it out, guys. Binder, what's happening on your shows?
Sure. Last night on my live stream at youtube.com/Matt Binder, I did a live watch with of Sam Seder talking with Ethan Klein. I thought I saw everyone talking about it. Very rarely do these events happen on the day that I stream, so it just made sense. Check it out, youtube.com/Matt Binder. It was interesting to say the least.
Definitely.
Who?
The H3 guy.
Oh, no, I meant the Sam guy. Well, who's that?
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah.
No.
All right, we'll check that out.
Some Hassan wannabe.
Yeah, exactly. All right, opening up the phone line 646-257-3920. Yeah, let's just have fun right off the bat here. I'm in the mood for this kind of thing. What number is? Oh, here it is. Mark Zuckerberg went on to a podcast or a YouTube channel. It's called for Darwakesh Patel. I don't know who this guy is, but this clip is circulating on social media. He's talking about Meta's latest ventures and how they're trying to create basically personalized AI friends. And I want you to hear this man pitch this to you to see if this sounds like a product or a lifestyle that you would be interested in.
But if you think that something someone is doing is bad and they think it's really valuable, most of the time in my experience, they're right and you're wrong, and you just haven't come up with the framework yet for understanding why the thing that you're doing is valuable and helpful in their life. Yeah, so that's kind of the main way that I think about it. I do think that people are going to use AI for a lot of these social tasks. Already, one of the main things that we see people using Meta AI for is kind of talking through difficult conversations that they need to have with people in their life. It's like, okay, I'm having this issue with my girlfriend or whatever, like help me have this conversation, or like I need to have this hard conversation.
Enter gaslight mode.
That's what Nathan Felder is for. That's what the rehearsal's for, not an AI chat.
Exactly.
Right.
With my boss at work, like how do I have that conversation? That's pretty helpful. And then I think as the personalization loop kicks in and the AI just starts to get to know you better and better, I think that will just be really compelling. One thing just from working on social media for a long time.
Compelling, aka addicting. Addicting.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
the way this meth is constructed, I mean, just like the cellular makeup of this meth, it's really compelling.
That's why I like the beginning of the clip where he says, just sometimes when you're designing things, and you think maybe they're bad for people and the people really like them, usually I found that they're right and you're wrong by thinking that it's destructive.
Right.
No, I mean, I think we have to understand two things about Facebook's business model from the beginning. The first is that their goal is not to facilitate conversations like that, because that was also the myth about Facebook. Facebook, when it started, it was supposed to facilitate you remembering. It was supposed to facilitate you having these relationships long distance. It was supposed to facilitate all of these like social interactions that you were having less time for. And all it actually did was replace them and change how you have them in a way that turned out to be very destructive and addicting to begin with. And this is just the next level of that. This is not to facilitate you having a conversation with your girlfriend about how to be polyamorous or how to break up, or like, I don't know what else you might want to have a conversation with your partner about, but whatever. It's meant to end up replacing those meaningful interactions in the end. The first step is getting you to think that, oh, well, yeah, this is going to help me have better ones. And then suddenly it's replacing them because it's just easier to have. And then the second thing is that this is so they can steal your data. This is so that you have meaningful, intimate conversations with this chatbot, so it can serve you better ads. And that's what Facebook does. It takes your data and it sells it to people so you can sell you things better.
Yeah, and he expands on this. Let's just listen to him finish, Binder, if that's all right, and then you can jump right in.
There's the stat that I always think is crazy. The average American, I think it's fewer than 3 friends. 3 people that they'd consider friends. And the average person has demand for meaningfully more. I think it's like 15 friends or something, right? I guess there's probably some point where you're like, all right, I'm just too busy. I can't deal with more people. But the average person wants more connection than they have. So,
like, I'm not a fucking Firewire port. What do you mean that desire connectivity? Gee, okay, sorry.
There's a lot of questions that people ask of stuff like, okay, is this going to replace kind of in-person connections or real-life connections? And my default is that the answer to that is probably no. I think
no.
I think that there are all these things that are better about kind of physical connections when you can have them, but the reality is that people just don't have the connection and they feel more alone a lot of the time than they would like. So I think that a lot of these things that today there might be a little bit of a stigma around, I would guess that over time we will find the vocabulary as a society to be able to articulate why that is valuable and why the people who are doing these things are like, why they are rational for doing it and how it is adding value for their lives. But also I think that the field is very early. So, I mean, it's like, I think, there are a handful of companies and stuff who are doing virtual therapist and, there's like virtual girlfriend type stuff, but it's very early, right?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, the embodiment in the things is pretty weak. A lot of them, like you open it up and it's just like an image of the therapist or the person you're talking to or whatever. I mean, sometimes there's some very rough animation, but it's not like an embodiment. I mean, you've seen the stuff that we're working on in Reality Labs where like you have the codec avatars and it like feels like it's a real person. I think that's kind of where it's going. You're gonna, you'll be able to basically have like an always on video chat where it's like, oh, and also the
okay, all right. So I think we get it, but go ahead, Binder.
I just gotta say, like, if you have 0 friends and you start talking with an AI chat bot on the regular, you still have 0 friends. Yeah. These are not real people.
What if you connectivity with them?
They are
connectivized with
we
them.
need more USB ports in our bodies, and it'll solve everything.
If you want to solve the lonely issue, if you want to solve the issue where people need human connection, you need them to connect with their connectivity port to another human at the very least. Like this is unhealthy for people. It is unhealthy for society. And he brought up the whole AI girlfriend thing or whatever, which was very interesting because it's early and people have already died. There is already a minor, I believe, or a teenager, either 18 or younger, I can't recall, who fell in love with an AI chatbot and committed suicide through the conversations that it had with the AI chatbot. This is already causing harm to people, and it is not solving any of the issues that supposedly it's supposed to solve.
This is the plot, by the way, of Spike Jonze's movie Her that came out, I don't know, 15 years ago, where people fell in love with like the AI Scarlett Johansson, Joaquin Phoenix did. But yeah, just putting that aside for a second, like this was, but that was viewed as in essence dystopian. And spoiler alert, he's more in favor of human connection by the end of the film, because when Zuckerberg says the average person has 3 friends, he doesn't expand. He kind of ends that thought and then brings it back to the product that he's proposing. Yeah. His answer is to socialize, yes, and use our product more. And we're already seeing versions of this kind of antisocial malady in our society currently. And you see it really, I think, right now in online manosphere misogynistic circles, right? Where it's like this building off of the pickup artist thing, where they give you all of these rules to socialize with women. But the rules in and of themselves, yes, are often very right-wing and focused on women and men and their traits basically as being immutable, and segmenting that, which gets in the way of human connection and creating all these rules. Then these guys go out into society. They use these tips on social interaction to deal with women. And a lot of women, if you're a more modern woman and you value your independence, they're not going to be interested in that. So then these men start to feel bad. And what do? They go back to the forums. They go back to pay more for this manosphere influencer, this pickup artist. And it creates this cycle of lacking of socialization that manifests into rank misogyny and sometimes literal violence. And like this has also been a part of some just 4chan of all alt-right communities as well, where it's loneliness that feeds upon itself, and you're constantly being sold a solution because there is an addictive quality to your phone. We know I'm addicted to my phone. We all are to a certain degree. But how about if you meld your addiction to like stimulation with your addiction to your loneliness being momentarily alleviated based on this like simulated human being that's speaking to you, all to make a guy like Mark Zuckerberg money? This is not going to help people socialize or be a tool. It's going to be a replacement that makes people depressed. You can never simulate true human connection, the spontaneity of it. It's in the same way that AI art will never be what art is, because it's not coming from a place of humanity. These people are anti-humanists. They are anti-human being, all the way up to Elon Musk and the Trump administration and their dystopian vision of going to Mars. They don't care about humanity. They care about getting rich, and they see the apocalypse as an inevitability that they may even accelerate for their own ends, but one that they're definitely going to get rich off of. And that's what is just like so weird and scary about the nihilism of all of the techno-fascist right, which includes ideas like this one.
Absolutely. And, he says that people have 3 friends and they have room for 15, but he doesn't address why people don't have 15 friends. And we know why. It's capitalism. Instead, he pitches like a market solution to that problem. This is like he listening to his pitch deck that he presents to investors about how his AI is going to, commodify people's loneliness, but he's now pitching it wide as though it's like a good idea for you, as opposed to just like a money-making idea for Meta after their metaverse thing bombed.
Also, how does he even give a number to that? Who says you need 15 friends? Like, what is that? Like, there's no rule about that. There's no
like
rule.
studies. There's like studies in like social science from a while ago that positions or like posits that people have like a certain capacity to have a varying number of meaningful relationships. Like the number of people who you can have a meaningful relationship with is like 10 to 20. The number of people whose names you can remember like off the top of your head is like 100-ish. Like those things are treated or used to be treated as though they were like hard rules of science. But now we know that that's not like the case. But, you know, again, when you're putting together a pitch deck for investors explaining how this is a big, good market opportunity and you can increase your stock value, you say things like that aren't exactly correct.
Yeah,
I saw some people in the chat ask me for more about the case that I brought up, and I just wanted to read some of the details here because I think it's important in the context of this conversation. So
it was send it to us. We can put it up on the screen.
Yes, yeah. Let me drop it in the
Or just I can search it while you read it. But
the chat here, it's right in the chat. It's AP News. So this is from earlier this year. No, it was from October of last year. Excuse me, October 2024. 14-year-old Sewell Setzer had become increasingly isolated from his real life as he engaged in highly sexualized conversations with the AI chat bot for months. The legal filing states the teen openly discussed his suicidal thoughts and shared his wishes for a pain-free death with the bot that was named after Daenerys Targaryen from the television show Game of Thrones.
Oh, God.
On February 28th, the 14-year-old told the bot he was coming home and it encouraged him to do so. I promise I will come home to you. I love you so much, Danny, Sewell told the chat bot. I love you too, the bot replied. Please come home to me as soon as possible, my love. What if I told you I could come home right now, he asked. Please do, my sweet king, the bot messaged back. Just seconds after the character.ai bot told him to come home, the teen shot himself. I mean, this is unhealthy.
Oh man,
this is unhealthy.
I did not expect.
There should be charges.
That just made me so emotional to see that. I mean, that kid's lonely and he's using a fictional character from a television show to interact with. And I mean, this should be illegal. How is this chatbot not flagging the police immediately, especially with this kid being a minor?
Mark Zuckerberg needs growth. There's a story in the Financial Times from December. Meta envisages social media filled with AI-generated users. This is because this is a company that has got a lot of investment because it got a social network monopoly, and it hasn't had a good idea since. And so, but it has to figure out how to grow. And AI is the thing to do that. We expect these AIs to actually, over time, exist on our platforms kind of in the same way that accounts do, said Connor Hayes. Connor Hayes, Vice President of Product for Generative AI on Meta, somebody who should be fucking ashamed of himself. They'll have bios and profile pictures and be able to generate and share content powered by AI on the platform. That's where we see all of this going. And, you know, I'll just say, the idea that your loneliness and that Mark Zuckerberg has the answer to it, and the answer is surprise, for him to serve you more fucking ads while he puts slop in front of your face. It is, I keep saying this. These people that we put, like whether it's Mr. Wonderful on CNN talking about Shark Tank or whatever, or Kevin O'Leary, or any Mark Andreessen, venture capitalist, or Mark Zuckerberg, we've trusted these freaks with the political priorities of the most powerful nation on earth economically for decades, and they have ran us into the fucking ground.
Yeah.
And we're listening to them as if they're some sort of lords of creation. They are charlatans.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to highlight one thing that Matt said, Mark Zuckerberg makes money when you're lonely. Mark Zuckerberg makes money when you're depressed. Like, you buy more stuff when you're depressed, when you want to flex online. Like, he makes money from depressing you. And I think that they've done studies, or that they have revealed that Facebook was operating in such a way that was trying to manufacture depression and jealousy in their user base in order to drive ad sales, in order to drive like people to buy things. It's just like the concerns of Facebook as a company trying to maximize its shareholder value are antithetical to the concerns of you, someone who's just trying to live a happy, fulfilling life. That's just something people have to understand. And that's why whenever people try to frame social media companies as like this public square, like the public square, I'm like, you're just doing brand work for them. Like, you're just doing marketing work for them. They're not the public square. They're like a mall. They make money selling you stuff, and they make money when you're miserable. Like, it's not the same thing as like a public forum. They want you to be angry. They want you to be scared. They want you to be lonely. They want you to be upset, because, people who are fulfilled and satisfied, they don't buy as much stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And it should also be highlighted that, like, out of all the social media platforms, I don't think any has been as affected and changed by AI slop as Facebook. Like, for everything, the neo-Nazis might be filling up X, aka Twitter, but when it comes to AI slop, Facebook loves it. It just, the algorithm constantly is throwing Facebook slop in your feed, things that aren't true, photos that are so unrealistic that is portrayed as real, and the people in the comments are just filled with people who think this is real stuff. It is so unbelievably unhealthy.
Same with Instagram, the amount, which is owned by Facebook, people don't know. There's so many accounts that run through like AI. They're like AI thirst trap creation, AI sort of like disaster stuff. It's like a building, and it's like we had this sort of brief period after the 2016 election where these people showed some goddamn shame about the type of stuff they're pumping into people's minds. But like, you see it with the them all lining up behind Trump now. The sort of pretense toward a public sort of mission is over, and they're just grabbing money.
Right.
I think, after listening to you guys for a while, I think you should all consider part of what Zuckerberg said in the clip, which is maybe you're stigmatizing people's consumer choices. I mean, you guys don't know me that well, but I have a girlfriend, and whether she is or isn't a chatbot, frankly, is none of anyone's business.
Right. This is how Facebook is protecting our privacy, right? We've been hearing about how they're stealing all our data, but you have to weigh the fact that they're keeping it behind closed doors, whether or not your girlfriend is AI or not. So
they used to say this stuff about trans people. They used to say this stuff about gay people, and maybe we need to destigmatize some of these products.
I saw a tweet. A guy was told by a woman that he was replying to and having conversations with a AI sort of scantily clad bot on Twitter. And the guy asked Grok, surely Grok, this is not an AI. And Grok came back saying, yeah, it has all the hallmarks of being an AI account. And the guy was distraught. And it's like, it's less funny now that you see like so many lives, like the catfishing sort of phenomenon that came up in the 2010s.
Yeah.
That's just automated now. And you used to have to like pretend to be somebody in order to get them to send you like $200. Now you could just deploy chatbots all over social media and get just anybody who's willing to bite, because they're down on their luck, because they're under socialized, because we don't have a society conducive to them socializing, and they're just prey.
And when we think about some of these AI sex bots too, I've obviously, since the election, I feel like my feminism's been like a little bit more heightened because of the moment that we're in. So I think about some of this stuff in these terms of like the anti-sociability and the way that like AI these AI porn bots or sexual bots are creating these images of women that are basically just there as sexual objects, and feeding that to the men who clearly already have issues meeting women in real life. If they go out into the world, I have concerns about what that does to their relationship with women who are like of flesh and blood, because it's at its core an anti-humanist, anti-social agenda that is it's a big part of the political moment that we're in, right? Yep. Post-truth, nihilism, nothing means anything. Everything is your like kind of individualized experience, and you can personalize it via your AI.
It is super concerning, everything you said, especially in the context of Mark Zuckerberg advertising Facebook's or Meta's AI as being able to replicate human interaction for people so that they can try conversations out or whatever. Because you can tell an AI chatbot how you want it to act, how you want it to react, what personality it should have. You cannot do that with someone in real life. And God forbid you come across a young guy, if you're a young woman, who is so used to telling these AI chatbots how to act, and then he tries to tell you how to act, and you don't respond in the way the AI chatbot would. It would be dangerous.
Binder, you're right. It's also like because they're anxious about conversation, right? So they go to the AI so they can simulate it and control it almost like a future human interaction. It's the same thing with these pickup artist guys. How can I minimize the opportunity for me to be rejected or for me to feel pain via this social interaction? But it's not the spontaneity of human interaction is not going to be mapped out by what the AI chatbot says. So it inevitably leads to a disappointment, which leads to more unsociability.
I mean, I will say the current manosphere space makes the early 2000s like mystery VH1-led pickup artist community seem like third wave feminists at this point, because the one thing that mystery would emphasize is that it's a numbers game. Like half of what mystery was teaching people is that like, you know, if you want to get laid tonight, you got to go up to 100, maybe 200 women and just not be afraid to like lay it on thick.
The Trevor Max guy, that I hope you serve beer in hell guy, was it just like go to the bar and rack up numbers?
Trevor Max, have some respect.
Like compared to like what, you know, I don't know, the manosphere is pushing now, which is that like every woman is just a sex bot that you like push, but you know, put in some money into and they should deliver sex, is way more destructive at its core than like the pickup artist community, which was, you know, destructive for the time for sure, but like it definitely had to metastasize into something a lot worse.
At least it got them outside.
Yeah, right.
It forced them to socialize. It also taught them to move on once you fail. Don't obsess. Like some of these AI chatbots are probably teaching people to obsess over individuals.
Yeah, mystery would say take no for no. Like she says no, next one. Like
I mean, these are all great. Who would have thought we would be rehabilitating pickup artists? There's a great movie out from the.
Need to have him on the show. Need to have him on the show. Invite him on the show.
He's Canadian, but he has a lot of ideas.
I'll have to make room for the top hat.
Yeah.
Like,
mystery.
Like leopard print top hat. But this movie here, Russ, if you can put this up, this is from the creators of Barbarian, which is actually one of my favorite movies of the past 5 years. But Companion. I don't want to spoil anything.
I've heard it's great,
but it's
really
this exact conversation we're having just in a movie.
Yep. The Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan kid is having a moment. Jack Quaid, he's in that one too. Let's I'm gonna read some items, then we'll take some calls and we'll do some clips. Yep.
I was gonna say, someone brought up Mark Andreessen before. Did you guys see the clip of him talking about why his job won't be replaced by AI?
Yeah, we did that yesterday.
Oh.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
I missed that. Teacher Dan 20. Oh my God, I know a guy in my teens to early 20s who had that exact approach. Just as many as you can hit on leads to more occasional success.
The sad thing with the new generation is like some of them are going to be so broken that very often women just realize, oh, this is a one date thing. I'm never going to talk to this man again. Or those women themselves are so lonely, because we do have a loneliness problem in the society, that they stick with somebody who they should know better with, because it's harder to learn like what's acceptable and what's not, and you end up in hell. Yeah. Both people basically.
So Gold Rush John, Sam would be duped by the Social Security deep dive conversation bot. Drewish, sorry. Translation, Mark can't find a real friend and wants another robot friend like himself.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Social Network in a while, but that is like Facebook started with him just wanting to do hot or not clone.
Yes. Yeah.
And now he's in charge of like loneliness for the world.
Right.
Which I think I was gonna say, I think that's pretty ironic because now like Twitter has ended up as Elon Musk's personal hot or not like website. So that's like, history doesn't often repeat, but it does rhyme.
Bitter Bernie Bro, artificial social conditioning is terrifying. Binder nails it. Fig Tion, like Fig Tion. I don't know what that means. Super insidious too because Facebook is now advertising Facebook dating. Left will always be best. I love Sam, but I do love when he's out and we get a fun half with Brandon and Matt. Yes, that's always fun. Bitter Bernie Bro says AI Costco guys chatbot on Instagram are bizarrely dystopian. That's odd.
So why do you need to talk to the Costco guys?
Yeah.
Or you need them to personally give you a boom? I mean, you know what they're going to say to everything. It's not like they're going to give you some advice or knowledge of some sort.
Martig, have you read Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams? It's about the reality of Zuckerberg and Facebook. Great book. I have not, but that sounds like a good recommendation, and I will take a screenshot of that I am for myself. Pinhead Larry says Mark Zuckerberg is the true wizard of loneliness. Alec G's Treehouse. Curtis Yarvin talks about putting poor people into virtual reality prisons and how much more humane that is than genocide. A good thing no powerful people listen to that guy.
That's like the plot of Demolition Man, which is a great movie.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Also, I don't even understand what is a virtual reality prison? How does he imagine that working out?
You're sort of like confined to a small space, but got a VR headset strapped to your face to sort of simulate openness in space.
Great.
Oh, so you are actually still in a prison. You're just wearing a VR headset.
I mean, honestly, it's sort of what tech is trying to do to everybody that's not even locked up.
Yeah. Except you can go outside, but then go back to your prison at the end of the day.
I think we should put Yarvin in that.
Yeah, let's see how he likes it. Dark Soul. For people who constantly harp on how movies are real and such, these guys just ignore the plethora of stories of how alienating removing any negative interactions or emotional experiences can be with some quick fix. Right. All right, let's take a call really quickly, and then we'll do these stories. Calling from an 813 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Annie, and I'm in Western Washington.
Hey, Annie, I remember you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I just wanted to call in and give a quick little update.
Sure.
So MR Chat came through and donated to my GoFundMe over the last couple months. And just last Friday, my brand spanking new wheelchair was delivered that
awesome.
MR Chat helped pay for. So I just really am super grateful because, it's definitely going to get some use at some local rallies and protests soon. So super excited about that.
Thank you, MR Chat. Thank you, MR Community, for helping out our friend Annie here.
Yeah. I've been honestly trying to get a new wheelchair for over 2 years. So you guys really helped me out with that.
That's great.
And I am still receiving cancer treatment. However, my prognosis is looking better. And so I just wanted to kind of share just a little update. And I am going to be running for local office this year as well. So
congrats.
I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, you've talked about that before. That's exciting. What office are you going to be running for?
I'm considering either what's called a charter commission, a county charter commission, which is basically a commission that meets every 10 years, and it helps the entire county come up with laws and regulations that would affect anywhere within the county I live in.
Awesome.
So, yes, I'm thinking about doing that. And so I just, really wanted to say thank you to everyone. You guys really, came through and helped me out. I'm still a little bit far away from my final GoFundMe goal.
I'm looking at your site now. We can put this up. You have raised a little over 9,000 of your 10K goal. So we're just hundreds away. Here's Annie's GoFundMe. Annie Fitzgerald. You can Google help Annie Fitzgerald afford life-saving treatment, GoFundMe, or we will put a link to this in the description below so people can help you out to get over that final hump.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking my call and helping to share that link because it really helped last time. So thank you, Ben, for taking my call.
Appreciate you, Annie. Thank you.
Have a great one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Folks will be able to find that link down below. Just flagging for you, Russ. All right. To put that in the descriptions. Alice in Portland, so much love to Annie. I am still in the middle of cancer treatment, but I'm hoping one day to be well enough to campaign to save Medicaid and the ACA. Best of luck to you, Alice, and sending love and healing.
If you are thinking about running for politics, and I do want to caution folks, don't go into massive amounts of debt to do this, but Bernie's call, and apparently lots of people are answering it, thousands of people for new people to run for office. This is the time to do it if you can.
Absolutely. Calling from a 213 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 213? 21? Yeah, this is you.
This is Colin from Los Angeles.
Colin from Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
Just wanted to call in, first time, long time, and I mentioned this before, but thanks to you guys for getting me a little bit out of the right-wing rabbit hole a few years ago. But
love to hear that.
Just wanted to raise concern about all the private school vouchers, and I know we're talking a little bit about that today, but with my experience, I was grown up in an evangelical household, went to a super right-wing private school, and whenever I tell people about it nowadays, they hear private school, they think fancy, but a lot of times the reality is it's just people trying to get their kids away from the government, and the government's bad. So just want to raise awareness that that's going on out there. It's pretty shitty what goes on in those schools. So
absolutely.
Bye.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, David Griscom and I did a left reckoning on that. Texas passed vouchers, and so did North Dakota. So both of our home states. And it is, as a North Dakotan who went through Mandan Public High School and public schools, one of the few states where the public school system creates a sort of income mobility that rivals Canada. Most of America has less income mobility than Canada because it's massively unequal, and the quality of schools for people who aren't from wealth are horrible. And now it's being dismantled because Republicans in North Dakota think we need to basically make it cheaper and give subsidies for parents that want to send their kids to largely Catholic schools that I would say are softly segregated. St. Mary's High School has about 7% minorities. This is off the top of my head, but perhaps it's changed. 7% minority versus Bismarck High School, the public school, has like 25. It's because of white supremacist parents, even if they don't want to acknowledge it as such, or fundamentalist Christian, which is not a whole lot better. And it's a shame to see something that, in my home state that I frankly take a lot of pride in, being attacked for parasitic profiteers.
And it's good that you mentioned the racism element to this, because Russ just sent this, that Stephen Miller was speaking about public education at the White House briefing today. Apparently just absolutely lost
this is a Nazi.
Yeah.
Bonker stuff, folks.
Here he is, the basically the voice of the president. We know this from the Atlantic, that when he's giving the sign off to Hegseth and Waltz and all that whole crew, speaking as the president. Shadow President Nazi Stephen Miller on education.
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country. So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous, communist, woke.
I just have to say, if you think that America's public schools are teaching children to hate yourself, it's because you are a Klan member. You are the fucking Klan. That's it.
This
you
is
are
the
a Klan
lost
member.
cause. This is the lost cause. Is this not? I mean,
100%.
This is exactly what the white supremacists did to erase the history of slavery and the efforts to build back and to you know what I'm trying to say.
Erase the horror of slavery.
Yes, to erase the horror of slavery. And so when he says teach us to hate our country, you mean speak about any negative thing or teach kids about any negative thing that the United States has done?
History.
I'll just say
history.
The stuff that he thinks is hating ourselves is actually stuff we got. The only things we have to be proud of, which is the civil rights movement, ending Jim Crow, ending slavery. Those brief moments of brightness in this thing, saying that, like celebrating that stuff and what it meant, is actually teaching America to hate itself. No, it's teaching you that you have a duty. It's not just about pride. Pride is what Nazis talk about. We have a duty as Americans to make the world a better place. And all Stephen Miller, that's Goebbels type. All he wants to do is to naturalize the sort of baseline evil that is existent throughout the world and gets displayed through American history.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't want American kids to be smarter, because then they would be investing in reading. They'd be investing in math. They'd be investing in a bucket of solutions that allows kids to learn better by funneling money to their community and to institutions besides the police. They want your kids to be dumber, so it's easier to manipulate them. They want you to have no knowledge of history, especially not labor history, which has already been stricken from American history. So they don't want you to know that the right to vote. They don't want you to know that child labor. They don't want you to know that the 5-day work week or the 40-hour work week was a result of blood being shed by unions and miners. They want you to be as confused as possible why things are the way they are and where we are going, so that they can make that. So honestly, it makes it easier for you to rob, because that's the big grift when it comes to white supremacy in America that people don't understand. And not just in America, ethno-nationalism broadly speaking works like this. It's an affinity scam. Stephen Miller doesn't want to uplift all white people. He wants to enrich himself in a handful of inner circle cronies like Donald Trump, I don't know, maybe Steve Bannon. I don't know what they're on good terms, but his goal isn't to uplift all white people, even at the expense of minorities. His goal is to enrich himself and to uplift himself socially and materially, while the rest of the country falls into mass deprivation.
Yeah, and so Emma Vergonia Land writes in, Stephen Miller absolutely hates himself for being Jewish. I did not know that he was Jewish until recently. I knew his wife was, but you can see it in the 21st century in America. Nazism includes Jews, and that includes Jewish Zionists, but also Christian Zionists as well. And Stephen Miller here is basically already, we do this already. We have erased in many ways the genocide of Native Americans from our history books. The way that we speak about the colonization and the westward expansion of this country is a mythology that erases, again, the unbelievable crimes that the United States committed in order to expand because of manifest destiny and because we believed it was our religious right. He wants to erase that understanding because also it makes it easier to support things like the genocide in Gaza. If you don't see parallels between our treatment of the Native Americans and our colonization of this country and the way that Israel is trying to ethnically cleanse and commit a Holocaust against the Palestinian people to achieve their colonialist ends, then you're less likely to oppose the United States government. That's his agenda.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Miller being Jewish is sort of trivia compared to Stephen Miller being a explicit ideological white supremacist. This is an article from 2019.
Yep.
This is from NPR, but I believe it was originally published by, or looked into by Southern Poverty Law Center. Last week, the Southern Poverty Law Center detailed leaked emails in which it states Miller encouraged far-right website Breitbart to promote white supremacist ideas in one message. Miller references a book of fiction. Someone should point out the parallels to Camp of the Saints. If you've ever paid attention to Nazis, they love that book. The Camp of the Saints is a 1973 French novel by Jean Raspail that has become a key inspiration within white nationalist circles. It portrays a dystopia, or perhaps an apocalypse, a flotilla of South Asian people who invade France and effectively overthrow Western society. He is a hysterical Nazi.
Yep. And it reminds me, when you pointed that out, Itamar, it reminds me of somebody else who was a far-right figure that Donald Trump is heavily influenced by. He's Roy Cohn, reincarnated. I mean, even the stuff about communism and the Red Scare. Roy Cohn was also a self-hating Jew that perpetuated anti-Semitism against people like the Rosenbergs, which, like, the usage of Bolsheviks back then was oftentimes like an anti-Semitic dog whistle. And Roy Cohn was happy to engage in that kind of rhetoric as a way to go after communists, and
First
that he just said it right
Remember?
there.
How does First They Came For start?
Yes.
It wasn't just an anti-Semitic dog whistle. It was also used to spread homophobia and to purge gay and lesbians from government, despite Roy Cohn, like, at least being suspected of being homosexual himself. Like, communism in the West,
100%. Yeah, it was very much a homosexual. Yes.
Yeah, but like, communism in the United States of America, especially post-Cold War, has always been a vehicle to criticize and to treat any kind of redistributive economic policy as anti-American inherently. Like, half of the things that we have that people hold up as being like great American works, like our highway system, like our public education system, if you tried to pass that legislation today, people would just call it communist, because they don't know what communism is. They don't know what socialism is. People were in my mentions on Twitter arguing that tariffs were socialist, that Trump's tariffs were socialist. And I was just like, wow.
We're capitalist buddies.
We are really far gone here. But yeah, like, communism in America very rarely means like, Marx, Stalin, Mao, and more often means like, I don't want to give my tax dollars to the government to uplift anybody other than maybe myself and Elon Musk.
And we have this sort of like I guess posture of like the Glenn Beck sort of Thomas Jefferson thing. The alien acts that they're using for this immigration crackdown were literally deplored by Thomas Jefferson himself. Like, right. It's like, I mean,
they hate Jefferson. They but the far right hates Jefferson because Jefferson was also the person who wrote the Jefferson Bible, which was a secularized version of they don't like the founding fathers at all. We have disputes with the founding fathers for many of their behaviors, but they don't like the founding fathers on a much more ideological base. Like, they don't like the Constitution oftentimes. Like, I remember that debate where Sam was on Jubilee and arguing with those like 20 people, and like the one like girl, the lady who turned out to be Canadian, she was talking about how like the West was built on white values and we should only let white people in it. And it's like, the founding fathers didn't even believe that. It's like, you can believe that if you want, like, you can say stuff like that, but understand that the founding fathers, for all of their flaws, like Western civilization, the founders, for all of their flaws when it comes to their blind spots, they would not even agree with you. And so the beliefs of the modern far right, despite referencing the founding fathers, is oftentimes incompatible with like the very bones of like Western civilization that they seem to think they love so much.
Right. Like you were mentioning, like, our issues with the founding fathers are usually things like, they owned slaves. That's the part of the founding fathers that the right likes. Yeah.
What do you want to hate America?
Yeah, they like the slavery. It's like how they like
say, like, we have to follow the founding fathers. That's what they mean. That's what they want.
Yeah.
It's like how they like comedians when they're sex criminals, but not like the jokes. It's like they like the worst parts of the people. Like,
right.
Okay, who cares about a punchline? Show me an accusation.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have more of this?
That's a lot of these guys' careers. I'm looking at you, Russell Brand.
Well, but first you have to become newly religious. Then they begin to accept you and enjoy that part. But like, let's listen. I mean, I want to hear.
We only got through like half of it.
We only got through half before. I think. I mean, this is just we're joking. We should. It's the fun half, but this is incredibly scary stuff.
This is a Nazi you're saying.
Yeah.
And we provide funding to states. We are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country. So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous, communist, woke culture that was destroying this country, where we were led to believe that men were women, that women were men, that racial discrimination was good, that merit was bad, and that safety and physical security mattered less than the feelings of liberal ideologues. The children will be taught to...
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. But in what you were saying earlier, Brandon, about how the Red Scare also was deeply homophobic as well, you see all of those hallmarks. Trans people also targeted by the Nazis.
Also, a lot of states already have the kinds of things that they are saying that they need to get rid of the Department of Education for. Like, if you try to sell textbooks in Texas, like if you try to sell even textbooks that aren't related to history and they don't have some kind of like patriotic messaging in them, like even like a math textbook or like a science textbook, if there's like a flag on the cover, you're way less likely to be able to sell that textbook there. Like, that's just something that they demand from all of their like educational resource providers in red states like that, which ends up, we know, trickling out into other states because of how big of a market Texas is.
Exactly. All right, let's take another call here. Calling from a 908 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is me.
Hi, who's you?
Yes, this is Joe from Burlington County, New Jersey. How's everybody doing today?
Joe from New Jersey. What's on your mind?
So first things first is, unfortunately, I did receive some news. My wife's cousin's daughter received a full ride for a graduate program to help children with disabilities study and learn. Just received news last night that her full ride has been officially canceled.
Oh my God.
To be topical, this has hit my family directly, and we are all feeling it right now, unfortunately. That is a topical thing that just happened, unfortunately.
Can you say what, you don't even need to be specific about the university, but what, like, is it a public university, private?
Public.
And this is being said that this is like you're being told that this is a result of the cuts on the federal level?
From my understanding from my wife's cousin, yes.
It's just, I mean, I'm so sorry. And the cruelty of having the scholarship given and then taken away.
We're setting merit on fire. If that Stephen Miller put in that word, it's not pro-merit anymore. We're setting a lot of merit on fire right now.
And this is DEIA. They leave out the A, right? Accessibility. This is also for people who are disabled. And let's be clear that when we're talking about fascist movements and we call a guy like Stephen Miller a Nazi, the Nazis exterminated millions of Jews, but they also killed Roma, disabled people as well, were the target of the Nazis. And I don't use the word eugenicist lightly, but the RFK Jr. survival of the fittest kind of ideology is a proto-eugenicist framework that is the through line of this administration too, as it relates to people with disabilities.
Oh, 100%, and I agree. And actually, the reason why I was calling was from you had Mr. Chopra on the other day in regards to the issues regarding loan lending and mortgage servicing. A reason why I really call was, unfortunately, I do work in the mortgage servicing industry, and I can report that, unfortunately, these industries as a whole are very much falling apart. I know from talking internally with my company, I can give additional details offline, but they are essentially gutting almost all the staff in order to offshore everything. And it's not just, the black and white data management. It is managing HELOC accounts, mortgage payments, not underwriting, but escrow accounts, foreclosures, and, talking to a lot of individual reps. Unfortunately, they're wildly inept. It is very much a clear-cut. CEOs have been across the board making measures in order to basically patent their bottom lines. And, I know Mr. Chopper was noting that, things are going to get worse. Yes, I could tell you a lot of these mortgage servicing industries, they very much are going down the same path. They are cutting as much corners as they can, and they are doing everything they can to make money at the expense of the customer. So just a warning to everybody. There's no oversight. There's nothing coming down the pipeline. I try to convince my coworkers to unionize. They were afraid of retaliation, and it was dead on arrival. So, just a warning to everybody in the months to come.
Well, really appreciate your call. Thank you so much for that warning.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you, you too. It appears that we have some breaking news. I don't know if you saw that Mike Waltz is out as National Security Advisor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
Correct.
did?
I put something in there a little while ago that said that it was
I must have missed it.
going to happen or something.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, it's expected to happen. Maybe we'll respond to it tomorrow. When we have like an official announcement, because I don't love doing these stories completely on the fly. But we should talk about this story because this is really important. So there was a group of pro-Palestinian anti-genocide demonstrators who showed up to an event in Brooklyn. And this was an event where they were hosting Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is Israel's far-right national security minister.
Fascist war criminal.
Complete
Terrorist.
Fascist, complete genocidal maniac. To the right of Netanyahu in the Israeli domestic political context. For me, it's a distinction without difference, but it gives you a sense of just like how extreme this person is. And this event was held at a synagogue. And the pro-Israel crowd will frequently do this kind of thing, including the real estate group that was hosting illegal sales.
Selling settlements within a
in the West
synagogue.
Bank.
Like, why are you protesting a synagogue?
You're
How
anti-Semitic.
Could you be so anti-Semitic to do that?
Right.
We're going to insult everyone's intelligence.
We'll do something explicitly political and Zionist at a synagogue so that if there are protests, you can call them anti-Semitic. This is something that happens that Zionists.
If there's a protest at a synagogue, they're selling land in it.
Right. And so there were a few protesters protesting Itamar Ben-Gvir speaking there, and there was a woman who was assaulted by the Zionist crowd, where they started following her through the streets, and it was men and boys going after this woman who was trying to be escorted by a police officer. And I've seen photos of her forehead completely bloodied. That's the same woman, right?
I'm not sure because there were multiple women assaulted that night.
Okay.
By this crowd. So I'm not sure which of them this is because in the report we're about to watch, she was kept anonymous.
Right. So unconfirmed if this is the same person, but the Ryan Grimm doing great work over there on Dropsite, and I guess this is also an interview with Emily Jashinsky. This a woman who wanted to remain anonymous and went on with Dropsite and spoke about her experience.
So, it was kind of later in the evening, around 10:30, and a helicopter had been hovering over my building for around 30 minutes. So I went outside to see what was going on, and I encountered the aftermath of a protest when I arrived at
I'm sorry.
Kingston Avenue in Eastern Park.
So just to clarify, she was not engaged. She was not a part of the protests. She was not a part of the protest.
Yeah, underline that for folks.
Yes.
Pro-Israel supporters, collateral damage? No,
Who could have thought?
Come on. That never
I thought
happened.
this was just going to go after the nasty anti-Semites that are apparently within the anti-Palestinian movement. Apparently, just being around these Nazis, these fascist brown shirts, is a threat to even bystanders.
When I arrived at Kingston Avenue and Eastern Parkway, right where the Chabad is.
And so what happened next?
Yeah, so I was standing on the sidewalk. There were tons of people, hundreds of people in the street and on the sidewalk, pretty much only Orthodox Jewish people, mostly men. And then there were some other neighbors like myself standing on the sidewalk, just watching the scene to see what was going on.
And I want to say that's an important point, because actually we had reported earlier that you were a pro-Palestine demonstrator, and that's not the case. To be clear, you were just sort of a bystander who was watching the chaos unfold in your neighborhood, right?
That's right.
And so I understand that. Well, why did they mistake you for somebody that needed to be assaulted?
Yeah, so what happened, and it happened really quickly, was that people near me began filming, and I didn't want to be on anyone's camera roll, so I pulled up my scarf over my face. And I just want to be clear that it was not a keffiyeh. It wouldn't matter if it was, but it wasn't. And that just escalated things almost immediately. A woman began.
I just want to underline Kathy Hochul and other sort of Democrats passing mask bans on behalf of these sorts of people.
Well, not trying to give Hochul unnecessary flowers. She's been protecting these institutions, the schools that have been going after protesters and has been suppressing pro-Palestine free speech. But that was just Nassau County. So it was a county provision that was passed in the north area of Long Island, where it's fairly wealthy and more conservative.
Anti-Semitism was an ostensible reason.
Anti-Semitism was used as a reason to ban masks. It was the first in the country. And at pro-Palestine protesters because they want to be able to see your face. So, but by the way, the ICE Gestapo that can come and pick you up, hey, they can wear masks and cover their faces, no problem.
Yeah, and they'll blur the official photos of those guys with the state bureaucracy.
I always say when stuff like that, that's how you know that they're lying about the people they're going after being dangerous. Because if they were actually dangerous, you would want to identify yourself at least mildly as police officers, because just rolling up on like a dangerous person who might be armed or completely unidentified would be you'd be a lot more likely to be the victim of some kind of execution in the United States of America. Like the fact that they feel comfortable rolling up on people unidentified, just going like, hey, come with us, it shows that they don't think these people are actually very dangerous.
Right. And I'm sorry, maybe you were right, Matt, that the budget bill just passed in New York had extra penalties for criminals wearing masks. So that you might have been right about that. Sorry.
It was not a keffiyeh. It wouldn't matter if it was, but it wasn't. And that just escalated things almost immediately. A woman began screaming at me. She was already screaming at the police. Then she started screaming at me that they needed to get me out of there. And almost immediately, a group of 100 guys encircled me and just started shouting just vile insults at me. They were saying you're a waste of semen, you're a failed abortion. They were threatening to rape me. Telling.
Does that surprise anybody? Anybody at all?
Nope.
waste of semen, you're a failed abortion. They were threatening to rape me. They telling me to go back to Palestine. And I also just want to say that I was standing right next to a long line of police. And as this began to happen, I moved closer to the police because I thought that would afford me some safety. And I was wrong because they did not do anything to intervene. And they really just stared straight ahead with their eyes glazed over as if no crime, nothing was happening before their eyes.
I want to play a little bit of the footage here.
That's like a metaphor for our entire society right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we can roll that control room.
You see, the fact that you guys let her in is the fact you guys want violence. When we went close to them,
you're a little idiot. I live here. I'm allowed to be here just as much as you are.
There's some weird ass pro-Palestinian motherfucker. Is that you? You want someone to bend you over and fucking rape you like they're doing to the Jews in fucking Palestine? We're down the block. These babies you guys killed.
And you can see in that video the police standing there. You pay taxes to be protected by the police. They're standing there in that video. And so how did you end up getting out of the situation? Was anybody other than the police trying to help? What happened as you tried to get away from that harassment?
Yeah. So as I tried to leave the situation to get away, another officer from somewhere else on the street came over and he saw this mob following me and he tried to escort me home. And so we walked in the direction of my home and this mob of men followed. And as they followed, they were again saying, go back to Palestine, and in Hebrew shouting death to Arabs. They were kicking me in the back repeatedly. They were throwing things at my head. They hurled a trash can at me. They threw a traffic cone at me. They were spitting. It was really scary. And at a certain point,
we get the gist here. I mean, I appreciate her speaking publicly about it. And you see even in that footage, like the way they speak about Palestinian men in this racist way about them being rapists is just really underneath it their desire to use rape and sexual violence to silence their critics.
It is a trope as old as colonialism itself. The positioning of like the brown male as being a hypersexual, violent criminal to disguise the inherent patriarchy of the oppressor group. It happens everywhere. And I do want to abstract this a little bit because this is not just a unique situation when it comes to pro-Israel, counter-protesters being allowed to inflict violence on like pro-Palestine protesters. This is the format that the entire far right wants to roll out for protesting in general. They want there to be a violent counter-protest movement that broadly comes out when anytime there is like a pro-labor protest, anytime there's a Black Lives Matter protest, anytime there's a pro-women's rights protest. They want to make it normalize it being semi-legal for a group of counter-protesters to come and try to crack the skulls of protesters. This is just a test case for that, because they know that when the counter-protesters are able to index a marginalized identity like Judaism, that it makes it harder for our society, for people who consider themselves to be liberal and have very shallow understanding of identity, to criticize stuff like this because they're afraid of being considered anti-Semitic. They don't understand how someone who has the identity that we consider to be a generally marginalized identity can in certain contexts be the oppressor or be the violent one. So this is just using this particular test case, in my opinion, to start normalizing this for protests in general. We've seen it all over the country. We've seen it them allowing you to drive through protesters if you want. The Kyle Rittenhouse case, they want this to be the way protesters are treated, and cops just standing there and letting it happen is going to be the standard.
Exactly right.
I'm so disgusted that Ben-Gvir was in my goddamn neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge problem. I think him speaking around Yale at a nominally Jewish outreach organization founded by, in part, Cory Booker and one of the Rabbi Shmulis, inviting him there, and this exact same thing playing out where the Zionists that support the fascists, like terrorists like Ben-Gvir coming to speak, are staging sort of videos with the protesters saying, look, they're against me as a Jew. They won't let me walk through.
I mean, I just headlined this. There's been no food, water, or medicine that has gotten into Gaza in 60 days.
And everyone who would put their feet on the streets for Ben-Gvir, everyone in that video harassing that woman, loves that. They might not say it. Some of them would. They might not say it, but every one of them loves that.
Yeah. And I think why liberal Zionism is an enabler of fascism is there are some people who are still naive in the sense of like they think that everybody has good intentions and that if we all just come together, we can figure something out.
Disney Zionism. They're Disney adults.
Yeah, but it's not that this is, they want genocide. They like the taste of blood in their mouth. If they see that folks like that, they see what we see, and we see a father wailing over his son's dead body, and you can see the fluid of the 2-year-old's brain on the ground. They see that as hell yeah.
I mean, there's a myth generally in, societies that engage in colonialism, that engage in imperialism, that engage in domestic types of fascism, that there is a justification that there's like a pathway you can take to justify it that can soothe your, the more liberal minded people's like inherent sense of what's right and wrong. That's why you hear them weaponizing the idea of systemic sexual assault. That's why you see them weaponizing the idea of like crimes against other marginalized populations in order to like give liberals an out for supporting things that they might otherwise still support but still feel bad about supporting and not be able to like advocate for vocally, but because they've been convinced that it's something that like if you just do it for the right reasons, if you just bomb a Muslim country because you want to free the women, that makes it better. That's a better type of imperialism, and we know that's not the case, right? And this is what makes like liberals across the spectrum, not just liberal Zionists, so dangerous when it comes to issues of like foreign policy and like our foreign imperialist project, because oftentimes they can be convinced to go along with it if you just tell them the right story about what's going on over there that like tickles their particular political concerns.
I think too, like, and I think Brandon and Emma both sort of brought this up in a way, like liberal Zionists can't sort of square the fact that there are people, a large portion of people who are Zionists who approve and like that, like Emma was saying, like the destruction, like the death, and because they need to understand like why. And I could give them multiple answers. There are some people who are just who just are that they like seeing the other, who they view as their enemy, to feel pain, regardless if it's man, woman, or child. It doesn't matter. They view them all as the other, and they don't care. Like, you can't really explain that. But those who do, the people who do feel that way but have an explanation, they've shared it. We already have the quote unquote rational explanation from people who are fine or even back the killing of Palestinian children. And they've explained it in many ways. The most popular way is probably they'll grow up to just hate us or attack us anyway, so we got to kill them now. Like, they've explained it. Like, this isn't hard to understand. The people that Emma and Brandon and Matt Leck and myself are talking about, who just like and support this stuff, they have on camera told you all why. And you are willingly either ignoring it or you're just blindly trying to pretend it doesn't exist, because they have explained it to you. Not only that they have these feelings, but the why they have these feelings. And
it's a lack of courage. It's also, I think, I've said this about liberal Zionism before, but there's a disinterest in doing politics, and in my experience too, the people who are most obtuse about this are often wealthier, and this is like, if you're even liberals, but liberal Zionists who have re-examined and thought differently, they're usually like more middle income or whatever, because like the system's working for liberal Zionists that are wealthy, and they don't have a understanding of like what it is to have a government want to kill you. Like well, I shouldn't say that. Of course, there are Jews who experience Nazi Germany, one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity. But in the current present moment, they don't see how the Palestinian struggle is so similar to that of marginalized groups in this country, whether it's Native Americans, Black people, etc., or the folks abroad who we've killed with U.S. imperialism. So,
and I mean, it's also just like classic, social psychology, classic like in-group, out-group theory. When you're part of the in-group, you will oftentimes derive like a positive sense of like social worth from being part of that group. There's an emotional component to it. There's a psychological component to it. There's like an intellectual component to it. And condemning that group entirely, or disaggregating yourself from it, is something that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work because you oftentimes still value being part of the group as a whole. And that also prevents you from having empathy from people who are outside of that group. We see that with Western chauvinists all the time. A lot of like liberals, a lot of leftists still like espouse the values of like the American project and refuse to engage with the fact that that project has been steeped in blood. And the reason why is not because they don't know, it's because they're part of the group. They're an American, and they don't want to look inwardly about what that would mean for themselves and their own identity.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question that sort of could be left in the air that could imply some sort of anti-Semitic thing when people say like, well, why do you think the Israelis are so hateful or something like that? And it has nothing to do with Judaism. It has nothing to do with any holy book. It's any people put into a situation where your number is viewed as rivalrous with the indigenous people will develop hatred. That's the exact same reason, people on the Dakota Prairie hated the Sioux to the point, or the Lakota, to the point where they genocided them. And you had things like Custer, right? Like, this sort of hatred is structural. It is not part of any sort of faith. It is not part of any sort of like people. It is a structural thing. When you put people into a situation, like I said, where your demographic is viewed as the one that needs to be preserved and the others are a rival to it, there's no way that can be seen as anything that it can do anything other than engender hate in the population.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not though Americans aren't like guilty of that exact same thing. And I think a lot of times people want to look at Israel as being a discrete example of like a way a country could be, that there's no sort of, and this is even when they're criticizing Israel, there's no sort of comparison to, but like Americans are a lot like this too. It's just, by nature of the historical particularism of Israel and where it is, there's a lot more of that. But look at how people talk about Mexicans in this country. Mm-hmm. Like, look at how like they're all rapists, they're all murderers, they're all gang members. We're putting them in camps too. Like, are they the exact same type of camps that the Israelis are putting, Palestinians in? Like, are they like Seder Taman? No, they're not that bad yet, but we're working our way up to there, right? And
sorry, Brandon, I just want to say, like, this is the West Bank. If you want to put this up, Russ, it's the West Bank of the Missouri River, and that is a guardhouse meant for the outpost of like Custer and folks to kill Native Americans if they threaten the city. It's the same thing. The same thing you see in guardhouses that are patrolled by Israelis.
Yep. Well, with that said, I think we're gonna just read some items and get out of here. I mean, sorry folks that were on the line. I apologize. But we covered a lot of ground today.
Them's the breaks.
Yeah. JD's pants. This is the hardest episode to sit through in a while. I'm at work. I want to cry. Every story is worse and worse. We tried to start off with fun with the Zuckerberg thing.
Yeah, except that was sort of staring into the abyss itself.
Yeah.
Don't talk about my girlfriend that way. She's not an abyss.
Crap, the server's down.
No sex for me tonight. Sorry. Okay. No one clipped that. That's inevitable. Grizz Johnson. I'm guessing Ben-Gvir will be just fine with these death chants since it wasn't being lobbied against Jews or Israelis. I believe that woman was Jewish, by the way.
Yeah, one of them was Israeli too. Though I think maybe not that woman, but I think the one who did get her head cracked open or got beat up. That guy, I saw like the Instagram post. She was an American Israeli. They just don't want you to think of that population as having that kind of diversity. They want you to think of it as a unified front against the Palestinians and pro-genocide. So it makes it harder to critique.
And
They-
Yeah, and shame on people like Jake Tapper or Dana Bash that will not emphasize that. But if it was a pro-Palestine group doing a quarter as much harassment of Jewish or an Israeli woman, would have led every night of the week.
Well, they'll even tell you that Hamas oppresses Palestinians in Gaza Strip. They'll acknowledge that there is a diversity of opinion within like Palestinians about like the way the Gaza Strip, the way the West Bank should be run. They just don't acknowledge that when it comes to Israelis or even the Israelis' ability to like totally speak for every Jewish person in the entire world.
Can I do a little Russ Finkelstein plug over here?
Yes.
So Matt mentioned Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. If anyone wants to delve more into their background and conflicts of interest, you might want to listen to my old podcast, The New Yorker Political Scene, where I make fun of the New Yorker's political scene podcast. I did an episode about Dana Bash and Jake Tapper.
Throw a link in the description.
Yeah.
I'll throw a link right in the description.
Good
That
job.
sounds very interesting, actually. I didn't know such a thing existed.
Yeah. I love how many layers deep it is.
I would
Russ.
like to bring it back one of these days when I'm not over here shoveling coal into this furnace at the Majority Report.
Jab from VA. The founding fathers wouldn't consider the majority of these white people to be white. Hey man, what the says the tech billionaires are so uncreative these days. They pull all their ideas from dystopian sci-fi media without thinking about the downsides. At least Steve Jobs stole and then innovated on the theft. Locked in the lockbox. Respectfully, I think the class analyst of Zionists is really wrong. Zionism has tremendous support among poor Jews and Jews with immigrants' backgrounds from the former Soviet Union. Fair enough. I just said anecdotally, honestly, but
Well, I mean,
I also think if you're richer, you're more likely to be more right wing. I don't know. I mean, and
it's billionaires like
Yeah.
Ackman and Redstone and all these types of folks who are really pumping this, in my opinion. But I mean, yeah.
I mean, fair enough.
I mean, there's the money issue too, in terms of like Israel's in terms of a customer base. Israel is a lot of these big tech companies' customers. I mean, look at all these like weapon tech companies that are coming, Palantir or whatever. They all count Israel as among their customers. So you know they got to defend where their money's coming from.
But I mean, that's also part of like the scam of ethno-nationalism that I was talking about before. Like that's the scam of what it is. It's to convince like poorer people that are part of your group that there is more like there's like less distance between them and the rich members that are a part of that group than there, and more by nature of creating a permanent underclass. And so it allows for like poorer members of like, let's say white supremacy, poor white people in the South are able to feel as though they're empowered by their proximity to rich white people under a white supremacist structure because of the existence of a permanent underclass of brown people that can never, get to that point or can never like shrink that distance with them. And so it's just a common way for people to get scammed in these kinds of structures.
Yep. All right, 5 more, and then we will get out of here. PCT Joe, I have a friend who served in Afghanistan and told me 2 stories. One of a fellow soldier friend of his being blown apart at a checkpoint by a suicide bomber, and another story about a group of soldiers giving food to people. Then, as they were leaving for the day, children followed the truck, and one of the guys was throwing cans at the children's faces. I asked how likely it was that the kid or their family is more or less likely to strap on a bomb, and we haven't talked since. Wow.
Our understanding of what our troops do in war zones is massively sort of watered down. And you can look up like Zippo squads in Vietnam, which is that we would have troops just go village to village setting huts on fire, and you look back at the end of the evening at all the different plumes of smoke behind you, and that's the amount of villages that you set on fire.
Robin Reno, Matt, I'm a descendant of one of the families from the Salem witch trials. Our contention has always been that it was a land grab. There was no such thing as Hugot. There was no delirium. It was free real estate.
That's what someone who is part witch would say.
I'd like to hear more about that. Like there's definitely a lot of the Salem town versus Salem village sort of urban rural issue there, and with regards to the charter. But was the initial allegations not part of that, or was it allowed to get out of hand because there was? I mean, it's not just the land grab in Salem. There was literally coups 3 years before the Glorious Revolution, getting rid of James II for Protestants, and that at the exact same time in Massachusetts Bay Colony, Andros, who was put there by James II the Catholic, was removed by the Protestants here. So this is a very tumultuous political time.
Yep. HJ on Teeter says, shofar for GoFundMe reaching its goal, please. Oh, did it?
Yeah, I passed the goal.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so great. That's amazing. Fenton Mully's distant father says, truly mind-blowing to me that Bill O'Reilly's still alive. I know.
I thought I was seeing a ghost.
You kind of are. And the final...
breaking news. Trump nominates Mike Waltz to be the UN ambassador.
It's because he's just going to be acting, though, because they're not going to be able to get him through Senate confirmation after Signalgate. Right. So okay, so he doesn't fire him, but who becomes national security advisor? Probably just like Itamar Ben-Gvir. And the final IM of the day. Cole from Little Rock. Physical safety and security mattered less than leftist ideology to the guy who most of them call their savior, who only saved them by being murdered by the state according to their beliefs. Yes, exactly right. Well, appreciate you all. Brandon, Binder, Matt, Russ. Great stuff, guys. We will see you tomorrow.
Stand by.
Stand by.
Thank you.